but disagreement. We've had a few. Let's pick one.
Like which one?
Welcome everyone to another episode of Life Couch Potato with me, Theo, and Win as the second host. Today is a special day because we not only have one guest but two guests, and they are special guests as well. Special and dearest to our hearts. So let's just introduce them. This one, the yellow one is Nia. She is my wife, and the white one is Oviene, who is a significant other of our famous host, Win. Before we continue with our introduction, I just want to say thank you for following us this far in our journey as we embark together in this journey with Life Couch Potato podcast. And if this is the first time of you guys catching us here, please do check out our social media, check out other videos. But now, let's go to our first guest, Nia.
Hello, my name is Nia. I am, as Theo mentioned, I am his beautiful wife.
Okay. I didn't say beautiful, but I do believe that you're beautiful, though.
Oh. Yeah, I'm usually more on the back of the camera, and then I'm usually the one who's preparing food for our team. But here I am today. You asked me to be the guest for this episode with Oviene. So yeah, here I am.
Just to check, there will still be food later, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But not as delicious as before.
It's
really?
okay.
Yeah.
It's a good compromise.
Yeah.
Okay, Oviene.
Yes, my name is Oviene. Thank you for having me here. So as Theo said, I am Win's girlfriend. I am from Toronto, originally from Indonesia, but I am here visiting because we are in a long distance relationship. Not fun, but we make the best of it. So yeah, happy to be here. And yes.
And just to add, Oviene is also the social media manager for our team, Life Couch Potato. And if you see anything bad or anything not as beautiful that you expect the social media of Life Couch Potato to be, then it's her fault.
It's on me, blame me.
So far, it's really beautiful.
But so far, we were grateful.
We
and
like it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah.
It's
you
much
are
better
part
than
of
I
our team.
expected.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, when you guys know who wins are, if you guys don't, then you need to catch our other videos, definitely. And yeah, let's start with our topic today. We're going to talk about logic versus emotions. And definitely in relationship and day-to-day life, that logic or emotion side of us will be one of the biggest, I would say one of the biggest things that affect how you do your life, right? And yeah, let's start with Win. Like, how do you see yourself as in terms of logic versus emotion, and what does that mean to you? What does logic or emotion people means to you, and yeah, just how you handle things in life?
Yeah. I actually didn't classify myself as logic or emotion. Until I guess more recently, I guess as I got older as well, as I get into relationships and interact more with people, that's when I sort of realized, I think I'm more of a logical person, definitely. And that sort of determines how I approach problems, like how I try to solve problems. It's not just like problems at work, or it could also be like disagreements with people, how I interact with people. I tend to try to understand how people think, like what is their rationale to, help them get to a certain deduction or a certain argument. And that's usually how I try to understand people in my relationships, and I think Oviene will probably agree with that.
So, but like, what do you because you consider yourself more of a
Mm.
logical person, but what do you think of the logical person is to you, and what about like emotion? What do you think of an emotional person is to you,
Mm.
and yeah, the different things between the two.
Yeah, I think logical just means that you make decisions based on like the most optimal decision based
Mm.
on an objective perspective. You try to be rational about it. You try to weigh the costs and benefits. Whereas uh, for someone who's more emotional, and maybe others can chime in later if
Yeah.
I'm misspeaking. I guess more emotional people would maybe not bother so much about making the optimal choice. They're like, well, as long as it's an okay or a good enough choice, I care more about what I feel. If I feel that doing this or choosing this or that feels better to me, or I'm happier
Mm.
if I were to go this route, then they would just go and do it, right? They prioritize their feelings, how they feel towards a certain decision. Yeah. So maybe that's a good segue. Maybe Oviene or Nia wants to, say, what you identify yourself as, and get your perspective as well.
Yeah, so I definitely identify as a more emotional person other than a logical one. I think growing up, also having been in a couple relationships, I've become more in tune with my feelings, and
Mm.
I've labeled myself as an emotional person. I also cry at reality shows. I cry at everything. So I am a crier. I don't know if that's positive or negative, but I've learned to accept myself for that. And getting to know Win also has highlighted that I'm an emotional person and Win isn't.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I would say we're like quite on the two extremes, right?
Extreme. Yes. I
Quite,
think
quite on the two extremes. Like
Quite
you're very
on the
emotional,
extreme.
I'm very logical.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll go into that later. How about Nia?
How about Nia?
I think I also consider myself as an emotional person. I cry also during like reality shows or like Korean dramas. And then I think I first identify myself as emotional when I took the 16 personalities test, the Myers Briggs, whatever
Yeah,
that is.
Whatever.
I think that's
Yeah.
one with the feeling or thinking, right? So I got like
Mm.
feeling. I think it was
Oh,
pretty high.
that one, yeah,
Yeah,
know
I
that
think
one,
I got
yeah.
pretty high on the feeling one. I think it was like 80%.
Mm.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then yeah, I think just like Win said, I also like when I make decisions, I consider more on my feelings rather than like checking all the pros and the cons and then weighing out. But I think I'm more on going towards the logical side, not on the extreme side. What do you think? Like,
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
pretty you're pretty
yeah, I'm getting more
feeling on the
Mm.
feeling side or emotional side. What do you think I am?
I think when I first met you, I consider yourself pretty on the extreme side of the logical one.
Mm.
Like I heard about what you were. So when we met, we were still in grad school, right? And then
Yeah.
I heard about like your future goals and then your dreams, and then I think you have all the facts line up, and you have already like figured out all the steps that you need to get there.
I mean, kind of. It didn't turn out what I planned to
Yeah.
back then, but yeah.
But I think as I got closer to you and I got to make more decisions together with you, I also see like the emotional side of you. Like you also consider your own feelings, and then you also cry during Korean dramas.
Itaewon Class.
No shame
Itaewon,
there.
Itaewon Class, everyone. Watch Itaewon Class, okay?
Yeah, I think you also like your feelings is also very sensitive. I can say that.
Oh, okay. That's news to me. Well, no, but I totally agree with you. I consider myself have both. Like I'm kind of in the middle when we prepare for this podcast, this episode. I was like thinking about, am I logical? I used to be more logical than this, but I guess just interacting with people, more people, I get involved with more things in the community. I feel like, yeah, I've grown to have more emotional side. uh,
But
so
I
yeah, I
think
feel like I'm
I
in the
still
middle.
consider you like 65, 35, 65 logical.
I consider myself as 50-50. So I
Perfect balance.
guess I'm perfect balance
Okay.
in my own mind, my own eyes, right? So yeah, the way I approach things compared to you would be different, right?
Yeah.
For me, I I said like I said I believe I'm in the middle. I have both logic and emotions, but the way I approach things is like I look at a problem and then I think about like all the possible outcomes of my decisions or what to do with this problem, how to resolve it. But then again, after that, I think about the emotions, like how others will react to this, or how, especially in our relationship or in our friendship, feels like how you guys will react or how you guys will feel about things. That's why I feel like I'm in the middle. Although those feelings, I think about those feelings, not I feel about those feelings. So yeah, I consider that as emotions. That's why I want to know that how you guys perceive that emotional side of or the feeling and the logical side of things, because I look at it kind of differently, right? Yeah, I still have that logical, but I use that logical to perceive that or to understand the feeling side of other things.
But what if like in making that decision, your logic and your feeling actually like contradicts each other? Which one do you follow?
I think it will differ case by case, but I would say mostly logic.
So,
Mostly
you're not
logic.
50
Yeah,
50,
yeah. So you're not.
right? You're more 65-30. Your wife knows you better than.
I guess, but again, for me, in my head, I'm still 50-50.
Okay. Cool. So, yeah, maybe just to touch on that a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more about the benefits or the struggles of being an emotional or logical person. Again, this is me
Yep.
being a logical person trying to
Yep.
weigh the pros and cons. So, maybe we start with the benefits of being an emotional person. What are some of the benefits when you use your emotional side to make decisions or in your interactions with people? What are some benefits that you feel?
I think for the emotional side, for me, because we consider our feelings and others' feeling also, we tend to make decision that is very like we try to keep the harmony of the groups. So we always pick the best decision for that we feel is the best decision for the group. So we kind of avoid like arguments and confrontation. I think that's kind of the benefit. And sometimes it can be like a disadvantage also because we make decisions very slow. We consider like others feeling, and then uh sometimes we get tired because we cannot please everyone with our decisions. I think that's the disadvantage, the big disadvantage of being like
see.
emotional person. What do you think?
Yeah, and also I think being an emotional person, sometimes we get too invested in
Yeah.
something as well or in someone. So then when something happens, it's hard for us to rationalize or to make logical sense of it. So yeah, I think those are the disadvantages. But the benefits, I would say that it definitely makes us more empathetic towards others and to understand people more and relating to others more. So definitely benefits and advantages and disadvantages too.
Yeah, and
Both.
I think like what you just touched there of like being able to empathize with people. Sometimes I'm envious of you have people like you who if someone shares like good news, right? You're able to be like really excited or express yourself that you're happy for that person. Uh, it's pretty hard for me to do that, and for me, I almost feel bad that yeah, my reaction is very subdued and but yeah, that's definitely a benefit. Theo, any benefits from the logical or struggles from the logical side? since
Well,
you're
again,
both.
I'm kind of in the boat,
Yeah.
in the middle. I'm both, so I definitely see that, and I also definitely see the logical side of things, which is, for me, the benefit is definitely you can look at things more systematically and look at problems, especially more objectively,
Mm.
and think about like what's right or what's will benefit more people, right? The another thing is with emotional side is what if you, again, you cannot, just like you mentioned before, you cannot please everyone. What if it's like you will hurt three people and you will make three people happy, right? And with the logical side of things or logical way of thinking, you don't really have that. Like, what's gonna give you more pros? Then just do that. For me, as someone in the middle, it's kind of tough because you said that you make decisions slow. I think for me, I'm even slower because I consider two sides.
Mm.
So that's I guess that disadvantage of being someone in the middle, like me.
Mm.
What about you, the one that is on the kind of extreme side of the logical?
Extreme.
You mentioned it yourself, man.
Yeah, quite extreme. Yeah, I mean the benefit of, for me at least, right, the way I see it, the benefit of being logical is that, for me at least, it seems like it's easy to come to an agreement because, you can logically reason why something is, the rationally best decision. Like, hey, look at all these pros and cons. Like, these are the benefits and the cons. We can mitigate it, or it's not too significant. So, wouldn't you agree that this is the best answer or the best decision to make? And and oftentimes in our disagreements or discussions and trying to make decisions together, and Ovin will say, "Well, but I don't like that. I don't like that decision," right? So for me, it's that's the benefit I feel. It's that I can always come to a conclusion.
Right.
The struggle is, of course, and of course that comes with our relationship, right? Is just me realizing that, well, the best decision is just what is the best, like, to put it in a sense, like materially, or the best, like logically, but it might not be the best emotionally, right? Like I might be not as happy, or I might not
Right.
enjoy my decision as much, but all I know is I'm making the best decision. So
Does it normally bother you? Like you said before, that you tend to try to get the rationale of someone's decision, right? And being in this world with a lot of people are being more on the emotional side, not that it's bad. Um, does it bother you to not be able to understand the rational, right? Because it's feeling based, and
yeah.
you don't have that rationale behind that. So many decisions that does that bother you?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, right? But like again, our relationship, being in a relationship helps me see the other perspective. So the way I rationalize, like how people could arrive at a decision or a solution based on their feelings is for me to appreciate the value of people's feelings. I mean, that just sounds like common sense, right? But
Yeah.
for me, it's that if Oviene, let's say, has a different decision than me, or arrive at a different conclusion, then for me is, let me try to understand like her happiness,
I see.
like what she feels comfortable doing, what she feels more secure in doing, and just put a value in that. Like there is value in her being comfortable in us moving forward in a certain decision.
I see.
There's value in her being happy, and also us as a couple being happy, right?
Okay.
Whereas, if I were to make my own decision, I would probably sacrifice, let's say, my enjoyment or my happiness, and maybe put me through something that I may not be as happy about. So
I see.
putting value in people's
Would you
happiness.
say that it's easier for you to be not just in the relationship, but like in general, to deal with people that's kind of in the same realm as you, like in the logical realm, that emotional side?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I mean, I think for me, at least, like at work, right? At work, again, it helps that my work is, more logical in nature. It definitely helps to, work with people who are also logical in nature, and it's easier to come to agreement
I see.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, what about you guys then?
I think it's definitely easier to deal with the same type of people, the emotional type, because we can understand better how they arrive at that conclusion, and then how they also consider our feelings when they're making decisions. Yeah, for me.
Okay, what about Ovian?
Yeah, I think it's definitely easier to communicate or to talk to someone who is more emotional, to talk about problems or share life stories. But it definitely has taught me that talking to someone who's more logical is helpful as well. But then again, I don't believe that a person is one or the other. Like, I say I'm an emotional person, but it's a spectrum. So we're just almost at the opposite ends of the spectrum, but it doesn't mean that I don't consider logical things when making a decision as well. It's just that being with Win, it has taught me to place more importance on that.
Right. Okay. And how does that like affect you, especially in the workplace, right? You, Nia, is an engineer.
Yes.
So, like Win said, engineers normally more in the logical side, but you consider yourself an emotional person. And how does that affect you in the workplace? And also, Ovian, you mentioned about the spectrum. You have both. You consider yourself more towards on the emotional side of people, on the emotional side of the spectrum, but you also have the logical things to consider. So how does that spectrum help you or hinder you in the workplace?
So in the workplace, I dabble a little bit in marketing, but I work mostly in customer support, and dealing with people, interacting with people. It definitely has. I am more definitely feelings based, and it's very emotional dealing with happy customers or angry customers.
Right.
So I being in the workforce for almost 3 years now.
Wow.
So it was new to me being in the workforce and having a full-time job. So at first it was hard to differentiate personal things and also work things. So for example, if my boss would say something to me about work, I would at first take it personally. But then over time, I've learned to deal with that and to separate the two. So in the workplace, I would say that it definitely puts into practice differentiating the emotional and logical side.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you deal with people. You said you're more in the customer complaint thing.
Support. Yeah.
Customer support.
Customer support.
So that's people angry at you, and do you take that, like, does that affect your emotion as well, or because of that, because you look at emotional people, you're dealing with those emotional people every single day, does that actually roll back your emotional side and bring your logical side into your work?
Yeah, I think with experience, definitely at first, those customers, the angry ones, it took a toll on me and it ruined my day. But then after a while, I learned that, okay, this is work. It doesn't have anything to do with me personally. So then I would lean more to the logical side. At least I'll try to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Nia? Like, engineers,
Yeah.
emotional engineers. That's sounds contradicts to each other, but yeah.
Yeah, as I thought about it, like when you asked me, I thought about it and I was like, oh, that's true. I think in my workplace I tend to be more logical because I have to be more logical in making decisions, because if I rely on my feelings, then I will not get my work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So definitely workplace bring another side of you.
Mm.
Just like Ovian explained, that people are the different spectrum, right? They have a spectrum that have both sides, but it's just like which one is more dominant. And yeah, workplace definitely help you to bring that another side of you. And I think another thing that will bring something out of us more is definitely relationship with other people, especially for us. I'm in the middle, or I consider myself in the middle. Win consider himself in the logical side, and you both more in the emotional side. And how does that affect our relationship? I think that would be a good conversation to have. So yeah, let's start with you guys. How does two different spectrum or different extreme of the spectrum affect you guys' relationship? How any interesting cases, arguments because of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we come together, I mean, I think we both have some kind of knowledge that the other is probably more logical or more emotional, right? But yeah, I think it's probably in our disagreements or our, establishing the relationship, how it should mechanically work. We come to disagreements, right? Anyone that comes to your mind?
I think not necessarily a disagreement, but a conversation. I think when we I think when we first got to know each other, you brought up that, hey, I'm only going to be in Toronto for a year. So then what does your future look like? Because you don't want to go into a relationship thinking that, oh, we'll just go with the flow and then we'll decide later. But for me as a person, I would ask if our future will overlap, but I wouldn't put much thought into that. For me, I would just be like, okay, let's do it, go with the flow, and then we'll decide later. So yeah, but disagreement, we've had a few. Let's pick one.
Like which one? Or maybe just on that, right? Like, when we, got close in Toronto, and then we, sort of talk about, hey, what should we do about this, right? Should we go into a relationship? And then I think, I was the first one who just say, okay, let's, just address the elephant in the room, right? Like, I'm going to be in Toronto only for a year, right, or so, and we have to figure out like what to do right afterwards if we decide to go in a relationship. And I sort of lay down the more logical, like, hey, this is my career, this is where I should be optimally, and how did that make you feel, or what was your sort of your side of the story?
Yeah. How do you cope with that situation? It's kind of tough situation, I would say, for you.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, the first few months were definitely tough because we were still getting to know each other. I got to know that you were a more logical person, then you got to know that I was more emotional. So then it was definitely a learning curve. It was definitely a process. But one of the most recent one of the recent disagreements we had, or conversation, was when we were talking about our future. So when I first came, for the first few days when I arrived in California, I wanted to enjoy California. It was like a vacation for me. But then Win wanted to say, hey, because we're together now, it's easier for us to, think about the future and make decisions. But then for me, I was like, we can do it later. We'll just enjoy first because I'm happy here in California. So yeah, Win, it was a surprise because I didn't expect for us to, straight away go into the serious stuff.
Right.
He made a spreadsheet. Hello. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and yeah, that's definitely a good example. Your perspective of like, oh, I'm here, and you came like around like just before Christmas, right? So definitely like yeah, we do have like a week or so of holidays, so you're definitely in that kind of mood, and you just want to enjoy it first, right? Whereas for me, it's like, well, what's the point of enjoying if if we haven't agreed on like our future, right? And so I sort of bring that up, and then I remember you saying you want to do this now, and I was just like, oh, okay, let's find a time, right? When do you want to do it? Yeah, and I'm that's how I come to a decision, right? Isn't it good, right? We have we lay out all the options, and then we put down the pros and cons of each, and and we try to figure out which one is the best option. But definitely, I think in that process, I also learned to put our feelings into consideration, like which options are we most happy about, like which ones will we enjoy most, even if, let's say, it wouldn't be like the easiest option, like logistically, or it would not be the quickest solution, but we like it, right? We like a certain location, or we like a certain lifestyle. I try to factor that in, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I definitely appreciate his side of the logical side of things, because if it were to depend on me, I don't think I'll be able to fulfill the life that I want to live. But yeah, being with Win, it definitely complements me. I think we do definitely complement each other as well.
Yeah.
And I've also learned that it's really important to place the pros and cons and think about what practical things we can do, rather than just depending on my feelings and my emotions.
Yeah, and I have to come clean that I was supportive of when dealing with that, dealing the big oven in the room for your future early on in the vacation, because otherwise I just couldn't comprehend why and how you could enjoy that. So yes.
Get it over with.
Yeah. Okay. How about you guys? Maybe an example where you have a conversation, right, or make a decision, like a decision together that sort of.
You wanna go? Or?
Sure. I would say it was really tough in the beginning. In the beginning, we have like a lot of fights, especially the first probably like 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, I talk about this in the other episodes of our podcast, but didn't go into the weeds. But yeah, I definitely, because of the emotion and logical side, although I have both. Again.
So you claim.
So I claim. It's, again, the way I look at things, there's from the logical side first, and then I look at like the emotion. Even in you guys' case, when asked for my opinion, I was like, I like your idea better, because then it would feel better. I thought it would feel better for both of us to get the big things done first, like the issues like done and get it over with, and just move on with your life with like an exciting future plan that you already have, right? That's how I look at things. Although after you tell your side of the story, definitely that was not what you had in mind. And I believe in our case, it's also happened like that. I thought I considered things like how you feel. I remember this one big fight that we have early on, like probably the first, I think it was we're in second month or something. Like at first when we got together, I told you, hey, there's a possibility for me to go back to Indonesia.
You didn't say possibility. You say you were sure. Like.
yes. Even because in my logic, I was like, okay, I want you to follow me as your future like husband, right? At that time, if I go back to Indonesia, I don't want to waste our time. I don't want to just like doing things just because like we're happy at that moment. I want us, again, this is like how I look at emotion. So I want us to be happy for a longer time, right? Not just at that moment. So that's why I asked you, hey, I I will at the time I said I will go back to Indonesia, and I want you to be okay with that and follow me if that happens. And at the time you said yes. At the time you said yes, but or the 8 weeks or something like that, I found out that you talked to someone else. That you were not sure that you actually are
Yeah.
okay that we have the future in Indonesia, and that made me so mad because again I couldn't understand. Like, I talk about this is logic. I want us to be happy. I consider the feelings, but yeah, it's just you didn't tell me your actual feelings, or you didn't tell me about your rationale, I guess. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah,
that,
I
that
remember
fight?
that
Yeah.
fight. Yeah. I think that was our first biggest fight, probably.
I think it's the biggest to date.
All time.
Yeah.
Ah.
Timings.
Was that more of Nia, you trying to keep the peace at the moment,
I-
or
I think so. I think at that, when I said yes, probably I was feeling okay. And then after I thought about it and then talked to that person, I was like, my feeling is not very secured. Or like,
Ah.
my feeling is not very, yeah, at that time, I think the when I talked to that person, I think she already went back to Indo, right, at that time, and she complained about life in Indonesia.
I honestly don't remember who she is. Who's she? Is it
My
a
friend.
friend?
My friend,
Your friend? Do I
Mm.
know her?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I think she just went back for good to Indonesia, and then she complained about like traffic, and then like the lifestyle back in Indonesia, and I was like, I was feeling not happy with her complaints, and then thought about like, if I go back to Indonesia, then I would probably feel the same way as her.
Oh yeah.
so that's the problem, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah, my
you have to
feeling
lay
changed.
out-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can echo that. I have a similar story. Do you remember the story where you asked me if you could go to Japan with two of your friends who are girls?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that story, he asked me, he was like, hey, two of his closest friends in Singapore who are girls, he asked me like, hey, can I go to Japan with my friends? But two of them are girls. And in the moment, I was like, yeah, sure, fine. But then after a few days, I was like, I thought about it and I was like, huh. Yeah, I mean, close
don't
friends, girls, but they're girls. And we've only been in a relationship for a couple months, so
Yeah, a few
we're still
months,
getting to know
yeah.
each other. Honestly, I was still a little bit insecure because I didn't know his friends. I didn't know him fully.
Right.
So then after a couple days, I told him like, hey, I'm not comfortable with that decision. But yeah, in the moment, I was like, yes, it's okay, but I didn't lay out my feelings, or not my feelings, but the
Well, you just didn't lay out.
Yeah, I
like,
just didn't
anything.
lay out anything.
in a moment, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, sounds
Yeah.
sounds fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like the issue for me was like after I got, like, you're okay. Again, like I checked, right? Like, and then I got you're okay, and then I went back to them, to my two friends, and say, oh, like she said she's fine. So let's plan this. Like we can maybe plan this, next year or something. And then that happened during the window of time when you were deliberating, and then you coming back afterwards and say, hey, can you
No.
not go? And
What was
then-
your reaction at that time? Were you
Yeah.
mad at like
No,
how I did?
No,
How
I
it was?
wasn't mad. I think in the moment I was like, because I think when I initially asked you the first time, I already had sort of some concern, right, or some expectation that there's a possibility that you will not be okay with it, which is why I told my friends, oh, let's hold off first. Let me check with her. And I was kind of expecting that there's some possibility that you might say no. So I think when you came back the second time, I sort of understood as, oh, okay, so she just gave it more thought, and she, change how she felt. Of course, there's some cost, right? And I have to go back to my friends, say, hey,
Yeah.
stop your excitement and your planning. I don't think we're going. And then sort of have a back and forth, like, oh, what if there's another guy on the trip? And then went back to you, what if there's another guy on the trip? And then she was like, no. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's not happening.
I see. Yeah, you were such a good boyfriend. I would say. Yeah. Applaud to you. But I'm pretty sure that was not the only case. That was not our just one case
Yeah.
either. There are so many more, but that was just our biggest. But how you guys grown like to get to know, I guess how to understand how each other think or feel, and how you guys improve from that point on.
I think that's the point of a relationship, right?
Uh-huh.
Like it is to sharpen each other,
Right.
to point out each other's weakness, blind spots, and you try to improve yourself, right? As individuals in a relationship, I think that's the point of a relationship. And I think why a relationship setup dynamic forces you to do that is because you have to make decisions together. You have to go through your life together, especially with you guys already married, right?
Right.
Like you just can't, let's say you want to move to somewhere or you want to purchase this house instead of the other one. You have to live in the same house, right? You have to make the financial commitment together. So you're sort of in this dynamic where you're forced to have to come to some kind of conclusion. So, and it's not a healthy relationship if you sort of enforce your own perspective, right? And which is why I think we have to make decisions together. We have to talk it out, and it helps you see the value in the other person's perspective, emotional or logical.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we kind of grown how to, I guess, to understand each other better through all that disagreements, all that, I guess, miscommunication, like how we feel or how we think or how we think we feel, right? And
I think what I appreciate the most about you, like about how you lead, about like how you lead this relationship, and how you said it in the beginning that you said that we have to be open, like don't keep any feelings inside, and then don't keep any like thoughts inside. So I think that helps a lot in being open to each other.
Yeah, totally. So after this couple of years, how many years we've been married? We've been married about
2 years. 2 years, dating 3 years, so 5 years.
So 5 years to get to know each other so far. Do you think it's a good thing that we have two different spectrum, right? I am more on the logical with a specific way to look at emotion, and you as more emotion with a little bit of logic, since you're an engineer.
Yeah, definitely. I think a good balance is really good, because we in making decisions we consider both sides,
right?
So we can look at like different perspective, and then I can support you like in the emotional side, and then you can support me in the logical side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess thank God for people that emotional as well. Huh?
Yeah. No, I mean that's what God sort of meant for us, right? To, at least in the biblical terms, right? To be in a relationship like this. So maybe let's segue into like our faith, right? How our relationship with God and our faith is also there's some different ways that we can experience that as well, right? Logical, more logical, or more emotional.
Definitely.
Is that the same with you? That you also connect with God more on the emotional side?
I think so. Yeah. When I do devotion, or do I worship, or like when we used to go to church, I think
Okay, what do you mean we used to go to church?
Like when we physically,
like in person,
yeah,
physically,
Not, right now we're doing it virtually, right?
Yeah.
We still go to church. I think I like let's say I can say that I experience God, or I can say that I am touched by God if I feel something in my heart. Like if I feel like Holy Spirit is talking to me, I rely heavily on my feelings when I do my devotion and do my worship.
Is that also the case with you, Oviene?
Yeah, same for me. I also rely heavily on my feelings when I do devotionals or when I have time with God. So I like to write. I like to write. I like to worship. I like to cry. Like it just helps me express my feelings, and I like to
see.
sing loudly. So yeah, I definitely rely on my feelings, but over time I've learned that that's not the best, because it also says in the Bible that the heart is deceitful and we can't rely on our feelings. So over the years, I definitely don't rely on that too much anymore. I try to, at least, because even if I don't feel something, it doesn't mean that God isn't listening to my prayers, or that
Right.
he isn't present with me. Or the Holy Spirit isn't present with me in the room. So yeah, so an example is like after I go to conferences or to Hillsong concerts,
Right.
I always feel very fired up after, say, a conference. But then after that, the feeling kinds of fades. But that doesn't mean that I can't continue to have that fire even if I
Right.
don't feel it.
Yeah, I
I see.
agree.
How about you, Theo?
Okay, me? What about you first? I want to know, like, from the logical side.
Yeah, I think I would say, similarly with, my personality and my relationship with other people, also with God, I think it's more on the logical side. Like, I find joy and connect with God personally when I read the Word. I read the Bible, or find some kind of revelation about some doctrine, or helping me realize how logical God is, right? The logical side of God, like, wow, God makes so much sense. Why he created this world, why he created me, why he died for us, and all that. That makes me connect with God. And also when certain reflections about certain verses speak about my life events, like it helps me make sense about my life events. Oh, it was because God wanted me to do this or go through this first. That's when I really connect with God. But I think over the years, as I mature, as a Christian, God is also a personal God, right?
Right.
Which again, evident in what you said, that there's a personal side to God, and God is a friend, a father, right?
Right.
And I tap into that more as I mature. I remember when there was a period of time in my spiritual life where I had these doubts, or again, because I enjoy connecting with God in that way, so sort of going to apologetics, reading up more about like arguments about the doctrine, how to defend it, and that just casts a lot of doubts about some unanswered things. There's just some things that you can't logically or scientifically explain, and that for me is a huge challenge in my spiritual life. But what I found happening is that I keep falling back to the emotional instances.
Right.
Like, I didn't really put that in the center of my relationship with God because, again, I'm a logical person. But I find myself when I go through that season of doubt, to fall back on that. Like, oh, remember those times when I really felt God's presence in my prayer or in my devotion or in my worship. I can't deny those feelings. I really experienced God through an emotional
Right.
way. And so, for me now, at least in my current state, is, I still enjoy a lot more connecting with God through knowledge, through logic. But I know that I can't comprehend God fully through that
Right.
way. And there's no point in having faith if you can fully logically make sense of God and his actions and his intentions. Faith requires you to have emotions as well. It is an
Mhm.
emotion.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Again, I'm somewhat in the middle. And I think, especially in the sense of faith, it definitely, I can see myself in the middle, like having both sides. I need both sides.
Mhm.
My dad is a preacher, and he's a very, like, his preaching style is a teaching style. Everything is has to be like from the Bible. Have he has like bunch of books that he always. I think my perception of my dad, if I am picturing my dad, what's my dad's doing right now? He's in his desk reading something about Bible or the Bible itself or any religious book. But at the same time, I grew up in a charismatic church, which typically, I'm not trying to generalize any church, but
Mhm.
typically, from my experience, rely more on the feeling side,
Mhm.
and having both sides in my family, like in the way I grew up, in my upbringing, that gives me that sense of like I need both. I need both. I need to understand God like from the textbook standpoint, which is the Bible. Doctrine. Why is it like this? Why is it like that? At the same time, I need to feel God. I need to connect with Him personally. Uh, like what Oviene said before, like after retreat, I always feel fired up. After the conference, feel fired up, and that feeling is great. I enjoy that, and I feel God when I feel that fire in my spirit, in my soul. But at the same time, I always want to know. I have so many questions about like how God or why God do things like this. Why God let these things happen in my life in this world, for example. And then I was I was contemplating about this when we prepare for this episode, and yeah, I think for me, logic is important. It's my first go-to probably.
Mhm.
But at the same time, for me, God is beyond our logic. I
Mhm.
cannot just put him in my logic. That's why it's also important to have that emotional side of faith that you can connect with God that way. But I'm curious for you guys as the emotional side of people, is is or do you have any struggle during your devotional time to read the Bible, to understand God logically, or is that, or how you look at the Bible from the emotional side, or how does that work with emotional first people like you guys?
You want to answer first?
I think for me, it it doesn't really that doesn't really make a difference. Sorry,
I
but
see.
I don't know if I have an answer for this.
Mm-hmm.
But reading the Bible, I think I practice having both sides
Mm,
also. I try to understand it. I try to go on the internet, look at YouTube videos for more explanation, and not just rely on my feelings.
I see.
Yeah, and
That's
you
good.
sort of dive into like like what's the Greek like original
Oh wow.
translations, right?
Yeah.
And I would call it logical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you have a pretty good balance. Yeah.
I see. What about
I
you?
think I just started to do that. Before that, I think I usually just read the Bible, and then if I feel something, that's great. And then if I don't feel something, then God is not talking to me today. But yeah, lately I've been learning. I think I learned from you too
Mm.
that I need to be more like I need to deep dive more into the Bible and what God is, not to rely just on my feelings.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I can see that from your
Yeah, lately, right?
devotional moment lately. Yeah, it's been great, and it blesses me as well. Like I can see you, especially early on when we just got married. And I see you like how you do your devotion and how you can cry, looking at others people problems, and I learned a lot from that. I just like when envy is about those people that can be like that, especially with us married, living in the same house, looking at you firsthand like that. That's yeah, I learned a lot from you and kind of envy and jealous about that. But yeah, at the same time, I learned something. I try to implement that in my devotional time. The way I'm doing that, my struggle, I always have struggle to feel God, especially in my day-to-day life when, like what we talk about in other episode, like when things are mundane. Just keep trying on getting to know God through the feeling as well. Like for me, the way I'm doing that is through worship. Pick up my guitar, try sing, try to connect with God through my worship. And what about you? How do you do that emotional side? How do you look for that emotional connection with God since you are a logical person?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like currently it's like in my personal space, sort of through prayer, like really opening up my heart and sharing my feelings with God. Because God knows fully how we're feeling. So just
Right.
sharing that and talking with God, or just listening or sort of getting lost in worship, right? And I think like when during this time when Oviene is here, I think we have a good routine in our devotions because she would sort of lead worship in the beginning, right? To set our heart in the right stay in the right mood, and it's nice to have that part, right? And then as we go into like our devotion, reading the Bible, reflecting on it, then I will sort of take more of the lead to question her, like, hey, what do you think about this? Which parts do you agree or have questions about, or how do you apply that in your life? So it's more about digging
Yeah.
in the
I
word,
see.
and I think that's how it is, and I'm grateful that we can do that as a couple.
Yeah.
And I think like that's as a church, right? You can also
Right.
see that, right? Even if you just look at service,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain liturgy, right? Like you start with prayer, and then you worship, and then you go into a sermon, which is like the more logical side, right? And then that's a service, and I think it also speaks to how we minister,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So are there any particular way that you minister like other people in your community that is either more emotional or more logical?
So here we have two different, I guess, group, right? Because us married couple, and you guys are quote unquote still single. And yeah, it's I'm curious like how you guys doing the ministry, especially you with the emotion, how you handle things in ministry.
In ministry, right now I focus more on the one-on-ones. So there are a few younger girls in Toronto that I dearly love and whom I really invest my time and energy into. Aside from that, I also sometimes share during care groups, and also I try to focus more on the feelings and the emotional side because that's what I can relate most to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
From a logical standpoint, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's really evident. Like, I think for you, it's more like when somebody is going through something, you try to be there for them, right? Talk through their problems with them, empathize with them. And for me, I think, my sort of ministry is like with friends who have questions about the word, right? Christian or non-Christian, right? I mean, sometimes me and
Yeah.
Theo will talk about like certain doctrine or
Yes.
debate about certain, how to interpret different verses. And, for like non-Christians also, like I have friends who may not be Christians. The way I see myself and ministering to them is, when they talk about like, just general stuff about the world, about life, philosophical stuff. That's sort of my way of reaching out to them is to sort of debate with them on those, or give my viewpoint, as I have a Christian and biblical understanding, give my viewpoint of things that they're wondering about, like
Right.
things like the typical things like purpose of life, or like why do we have suffering in this world, why is politics not the answer, things like that. And sort of me bringing the perspective that hey, look at it from this perspective, this world is meant to be this, we're not supposed to look for these things in people or in the things around us. So that's how I see myself ministering. And again, doing this podcast is one way, as saying that maybe more in season 2, right?
Yeah.
And also, for me, writing blog posts with another friend who's also definitely more on the logical side, right? So also laying out our thoughts and our discussion about doctrine, or about some specific verses, and writing that out. And hopefully that could be a blessing to others who are also struggling with that. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, for us as a married couple, it's different, definitely different than you guys like doing you guys' own ministry. We tend to do ministry together. Like when we are trying to connect with this younger person, we connect through both sides, logical side and the emotion side, because Oviene mentioned that people have the spectrum, so they have both. If this is a matter that Nia will excel more with the emotional side, then I let her lead the way, and I'm just gonna be looking from behind, supporting her, and the other way around as well. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think lately our ministry has been focused more on like coaching. I don't know what's the right term, like younger couples.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been kind of blessed by God that we are like trusted by these couples. And then I think like Theo said, we usually, when we like do ministry to them, I usually more on the emotional side. Like if they happen to have a problem, I cry with them, like what Theo said. And then when I pray for them, I like more on the feeling side. And then when we are having the conversation, I think I tackle more on like the feeling. Like I ask like, how do you feel if the boyfriend do this? And then for you it's more like,
what do you do after that?
How do you solve this?
How do you solve this?
Yeah, I think it's,
What would you think the other person would feel? Yeah.
I think we make a pretty good team with you on the more on the logical side and I'm on the feeling side.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, God put us together as a married couple. I think He has a great plan. He has a special plan for us, and it's not a coincidence that we have different type of personality in terms of logic versus emotion. And for you guys as well, definitely God has special purpose for you guys. I mean, for the listeners, it just happened that both of us, the guys, are more in the logical side, although I'm not as logical as you are probably. And Nia and Oviene are more in the emotional side.
Yeah. So maybe, to end off, maybe, we can just go around and say, what is the one thing that you hope the other like type of person should know, or you would wish they know?
It's gonna be difficult.
Right? Maybe you don't have to, because you're both. I don't know.
Exactly.
But yeah, maybe I'll go first. I think for me, it's like, I just wanna tell like an emotional person, to help them see and understand that the objective way or the logical way of arriving at things is sort of the consistent way, right? Because it's sort of the objective way, and it makes your life easier in a sense. But how about you?
I think for a logical person, I would say to consider our feelings more and try to understand it more. But then to the emotional people, I would say that you should practice to put your feelings in the back seat. But your emotions and feelings are still valid. It doesn't mean they're not valid, but in
Right.
some circumstances, you'll have to think more to the logical side.
Right. Nia?
I think I agree with Oviene. Like for the logical person, I hope that they can be more considerate.
Understanding,
Yeah, considerate
yeah.
for the emotional people, and then for the emotional people, I just want to remind that logical people is not heartless. They also have feelings, and they just like Theo, probably he's like logical, but he also has like also consider other people's feelings. Also, it's like probably the second.
Yeah.
second.
Well, yeah. Well, to end this episode, I just want to say that nothing or logic is not better than emotion, or emotion is not better than logic. They both, God created both sides of a person, of the people, for a good thing. There's a special purpose. There's a special place for each type. And if you have, if you are in a relationship with the same logical or the same emotional person, then I would say that there is a special place for you as a couple. And also, if you have, just like us, have a different personality, it's also, God also have special purpose for two different personality together as one. But yeah, again, for individual, it's, you guys have your own way of coping and approaching things, and that's beautiful. And I would encourage you guys to do more with that, and still try to understand how other people think, other people with other personality or emotion think about emotion things or feel about things, how emotional people to understand how logical people think. So I guess try to be in harmony with each other. There's always good in unity. There's always we are created to be one as one body of Christ, and we just want to say that whatever you guys are, which side you guys are, there's always something good that you guys can do with that. And if you want to share something, want to share any stories that related to this, just hit us up in the comments below or in our social media. You guys know the drill. It's all in the description below. And I will catch you on the next season. Bye-bye.